Let's read my followers' stories.
In a quiet seaside town, there lived a boy named Lucas, known throughout the village for his extraordinary talent in painting. From a very young age, Lucas had an innate ability to capture the world around him in vibrant colors and intricate details that astonished everyone who saw his work. His first painting, created when he was only 5, depicted the waves crashing against the rocky shore, so vivid and alive that it seemed the sea might spill from the canvas at any moment. Lucas's parents, simple fishermen, were both proud and bewildered by their son's gift. They had no idea where his talent had come from, but they encouraged it as best they could. Lucas was never seen without a sketchbook or a brush in hand, and he spent countless hours by the water, drawing and painting everything he saw. The old lighthouse at the edge of town, the seagulls soaring through the sky, the fishermen hauling in their daily catch. Lucas captured it all with the precision and emotion that belied his young age. As Lucas grew older, his talent only deepened. By the time he was 12, his work was being displayed in local galleries, and art collectors from the nearby city began to take notice. His paintings were unlike anything they had ever seen. Each one told a story, full of life and energy, with colors that seemed to pulse and shift with the changing light. The more Lucas painted, the more his reputation spread, until it reached the ears of an influential gallery owner named Mr. Beaumont. Mr. Beaumont was a tall, stern man with a sharp eye for talent. He had discovered many famous artists and was always on the lookout for the next big thing. When he heard about Lucas, he was intrigued. A prodigy, they said, a boy who could paint like the masters, but with a fresh perspective that was all his own. Mr. Beaumont decided to see for himself, and one summer day, he made the journey to the seaside town to visit Lucas's studio. The studio was little more than a small shed at the back of Lucas's house, filled with canvases, paints, and the smell of the ocean. When Mr. Beaumont arrived, Lucas was busy working on a new piece, his brow furrowed in concentration as he applied delicate strokes to the canvas. He didn't even notice Mr. Beaumont enter. For several minutes, Mr. Beaumont watched in silence, impressed by the boy's focus and skill. Finally, he cleared his throat, and Lucas looked up, startled. "Are you Lucas?" Mr. Beaumont asked, though he already knew the answer. Lucas nodded, wiping his hands on the rag. "Yes, sir. Can I help you?" "I'm Mr. Beaumont," the man said, extending a hand. "I've heard a lot about you, young man. They say you're quite the artist." Lucas blushed, his heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nervousness. "Thank you, sir. I love to paint." "I can't see that," Mr. Beaumont replied, glancing around the studio at the various works in progress. "Your talent is remarkable, Lucas. I'd like to offer you an opportunity." Lucas's eyes widened. "What kind of opportunity?" "I run a gallery in the city," Mr. Beaumont explained. "A very prestigious one. We showcase some of the finest artists in the country, and I believe you have the potential to join their ranks. I'd like to host an exhibition of your work." An exhibition. The word echoed in Lucas's mind. It was everything he had ever dreamed of, a chance to show his paintings to the world, to be recognized as a real artist. But there was a catch, of course. "There's one condition," Mr. Beaumont continued, as if reading Lucas's thoughts. "You'll need to create something new, something special, a masterpiece that will truly show the world what you're capable of." A masterpiece. Lucas felt a thrill of excitement, but also a pang of doubt. Could he really do it? Could he create something worthy of such a high honor? I'll do my best," Lucas said, his voice trembling slightly. Mr. Beaumont smiled, a rare expression for him. "I have no doubt you will. I'll give you 3 months. After that, I'll return to see what you've created. If it's as good as I believe it will be, we'll arrange the exhibition." And with that, Mr. Beaumont left, leaving Lucas standing in his studio, both exhilarated and terrified by the task ahead. The next 3 months were the most intense of Lucas's life. He threw himself into his work with a fervor he had never known before, determined to create something truly extraordinary. Day after day, he painted from dawn until dusk, sometimes forgetting to eat or sleep. His parents grew concerned, but Lucas assured them he was fine, that he just needed to focus. In his mind, Lucas saw the painting he wanted to create. It was a scene of the ocean, but not just any ocean. This was a place where the sea met the sky in a riot of color and movement, where the waves danced like living creatures, and the light played across the water in 1,000 shades of blue and green. It was a vision of both peace and power, a celebration of life and nature that would leave anyone who saw it breathless. But as Lucas worked, he began to realize how difficult it was to capture this vision. No matter how hard he tried, the colors weren't quite right, the shapes weren't perfect, the feeling wasn't there. He would paint a section, only to grow frustrated and wipe it away, starting over again and again. The more he struggled, the more the doubt grew in his mind. What if he wasn't good enough? What if this masterpiece was beyond his reach? The fear gnawed at him, but Lucas refused to give up. He pushed himself harder, working late into the night, his hands trembling with exhaustion as he held the brush. His parents became more insistent that he needed to rest. "Lucas, you need to take care of yourself," his mother said one evening, placing a hand on his shoulder as he stared at the unfinished painting. "You're wearing yourself out." "I'm fine, Mom," Lucas replied, though he knew he was lying. His body ached, and there was a constant tightness in his chest that he tried to ignore. But he couldn't stop now. He was so close. As the deadline approached, Lucas worked harder than ever. He began to shut himself away from the world, spending every waking moment in his studio. His friends stopped by to see him, but he barely acknowledged them, his mind consumed by the painting. He became a ghost in his own home, a figure seen only in the early hours of the morning or late at night, always hurrying to and from his studio. The night before Mr. Beaumont was due to return, Lucas stayed up late, working on the final details. His vision was blurred with exhaustion, but he pushed on, determined to finish. As he added the last touches, the painting finally began to take on the life he had envisioned. The color seemed to dance on the canvas, the waves leaping out as if they might wash over him at any moment. It was perfect, or as close to perfect as he could get. But as Lucas stepped back to admire his work, the tightness in his chest suddenly intensified. He gasped, clutching at as hard as pain shot through his body. He staggered, trying to stay on his feet, but the world was spinning, and everything was going dark. With a final effort, Lucas reached out, his hand brushing against the edge of the canvas before he collapsed to the floor. The last thing he saw was his masterpiece, glowing softly in the dim light of the studio. The next morning, Lucas's parents found him lying on the floor of his studio, cold and still. The painting stood finished beside him, a testament to the talent and determination that had driven him to his end. The news of Lucas's death spread quickly through the town and beyond. Mr. Beaumont arrived that afternoon, shocked and saddened by the loss of such a promising young artist. He stood in the studio, staring at the painting, tears welling in his eyes. It was everything he had hoped for and more, a work of pure genius, filled with the depth and emotion that belied the artist's young age. The exhibition went ahead as planned, but it became more than just a showcase of Lucas's talent. It became a memorial, a tribute to the boy who had given everything for his art. People came from all over the country to see the painting, and many wept as they stood before it, feeling the passion and pain that had gone into his creation. Lucas's painting became a symbol, a reminder of the fine line between ambition and obsession. It was displayed in galleries and museums for years to come, and it inspired countless young artists to pursue their dreams, but also to remember the importance of balance and self-care. Though Lucas's life was tragically short, his legacy lived on through his work. His story was told and retold, a cautionary tale of a boy who reached for greatness and paid the ultimate price. But to those who knew him, Lucas was more than just a cautionary tale. He was a brilliant, kind-hearted boy who loved to paint, who saw the world in a way few others could, and who left behind a piece of his soul in every brushstroke. And so, Lucas's masterpiece, unfinished in spirit but complete in form, continued to captivate and inspire, a lasting testament to the boy who dared to dream too big and too bright.
Thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. Peace.